A lot of
I
things are
just
coming
need
together at once.
I just need about 10 minutes for the meeting at the office here.
Okay.
After that, we can do that. So.
Okay, because we needed to start planning your kit and the project you're proposing. So.
Cool. So it looks like Emre has these two open.
Right.
That's it, right? Everything else is older. Cool.
So I added a button to change the layout of the device story table to make it a little bit wider for Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure about the visual design yet, but I hope at least the basic functionality is okay.
Cool. I'll give this a proper review later. It looks a little bit large to look at here. And this is a little surprising because this looks like the code that I put in, but it's showing up in your diff, which is strange. So I'll have to try to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, I branched before you put that fix up, so I added it later.
I already merged mine to master, I thought. So it shouldn't, yeah, that's weird. It shouldn't show up in a diff like that, I don't think, unless you mix the files up. Yeah, you see, because it's already like this in master. That's weird. And then this is, right, app assets, application.js. Yeah, it's the same file. That's strange. Yeah, normally GitHub wouldn't show it this way. Like it should be able to recognize that like master doesn't look like this anymore. So that's a little weird. Maybe it'll just be okay, but.
Might be a timing thing, with a, some kind of a race between the file updates.
Yeah, GitHub's not supposed to do that, but I don't know. Maybe we should rebase this just to like see if that clears it up, because that'll make review easier if I'm not accidentally also picking up changes that are already on master. And this one, oh, I see. This is like a key change thing. Yeah, and this one is right. This one is the one that's on master. But then for some reason your other PR is the before is not correct.
Is it referencing some older version that it's diffing from?
It seems like it is, but it shouldn't. Like GitHub doesn't usually work that way. So, so I don't know what's going on there. That's strange. But anyway, we should probably get this one in. The one thing I was so you're looking for if it's not a backspace, because the thing I was thinking is we might want to watch out for paste too. Like if someone hits like Control V, or any control key or something on this. Yeah, because you're checking for if it's a backspace or if the length is greater than 1, which means that like paste I think wouldn't set that off, right?
I think it should.
Yeah.
It registers the V separately, so.
Different systems handle backspace differently when pasting. Windows won't paste the backspace or any kind of cursor controls.
Oh, I see keyed on it. So the V might count as 1. Interesting. I mean, we can give it a try, but yeah, it's, see what happens.
There we go, in progress.
Yeah, so you need some more reviews there. Technically, these are still in progress. I haven't done anything new in the last probably 2 weeks or something like that. So I'll get around to them.
Can you scroll the back burner list for me? I want to see the stuff that's near the bottom.
Sure.
Set up improved logging for ingest. Somebody was asking you about a feature that I know we've had on the back burner for a couple of years. And I wanted to see how far down it was. I told them it was, they were suggesting it. I said, I think pretty sure that's already an item and it's been, back burner for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's one of, they want to be able to, between uploading and submitting, be able to draw a box around certain measurements and elide them.
Yeah.
And that would, because they've got a new BGEIGI and they went out and tested it, and they also tested it against a FiestaWare plate in the garage before they went out. So, an easy way to be able to just take those ones in the garage and not have to ruin the whole upload or get into like, you know, filtering the file, which I told them to do is just load it up in a text editor and you know, select those and hit delete and then upload it again. But
Jan's plugin for what's it called? QGIS is handy for that, from what I understand as well. This one. So if you're comfortable installing QGIS, I know Jan, he basically wrote this specifically for that purpose.
Right.
So, because it lets him load in a file locally, get a map for it, and then he can select what he wants and then save it back out.
I deliberately don't promote that tool because a lot of people want a way to view their files and see their data without having to send it to the Safecast API. And we would like to incentivize them uploading and sharing, not just looking at it privately and then saying done.
That's fair, but at least it does do what you're asking.
Yeah.
Like from a feature perspective, it can work. Yeah. So someone will basically have to implement that, but in the browser.
And everything we want to do is we want to be able to make it so that the easiest path is the one that we prefer, which is where they, you know, put their data in the main database and everybody gets to have the benefit of it, not just them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. I looked for edit and I didn't see it. I could just go ahead and re-add it, but you know, we're gonna need someone who has probably some pretty strong JavaScript chops to pull off something like that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and just the design of how it would work and what it would do, let alone actually coding it, is something that needs more careful thought than a 5-minute, you know, kind of, oh, there it works, you know, kind of thing. Because what if you catch other stuff, and what do you do with the file once you've got a modified list of the data points? Do you change the file and to save it under the same file name in the you know, the repository of of uploads, or do you offer it to them to download back to their local storage? It's not as easy as it sounds.
Let's see.
It's not editing because you can't change or add anything. You can only, you know, sort of, I don't know, the word I used was elide, but there's probably a better description.
It'd be elision, I guess, would be the noun.
Yep.
Did I spell that right? Of course I didn't spell that right.
Only one L, I think.
Thanks.
Yeah. I don't know, not Rob, but Peter or somebody, I often get dinged for using vocabulary that a lot of our users wouldn't recognize without a dictionary.
We're dealing we deal with a lot of ESL folks. So.
Yeah.
Testing device.
And this is a case where the natural behavior of the bGeigie, which is to only make one file per day, not a new file every time you turn it on, is against them there, because you turned it off and then they turned it back on when they got to their survey site, and it put it all in the same file. You know, it marks it with a new header block. And
that's what I was about to say. Yeah, at least you can edit it out if you know what to look for.
Yeah, and or look for the timestamps. If you're looking for doing on timestamps, then you've got to realize that your local time and convert it to UTC time to find the block of data, and yeah. And I do it okay. I mean, I tend to split files. So like where I'll be out driving around and then I come to a park or something, and I get the bGeigie off and put it on my backpack and walk around for an hour and then put it back on the car. When I get home, I've got one file with 3 different groups of data.
Yeah.
You know, one which wants to have the metadata as driving, one which wants to have it as, you know, walking with it mounted on a backpack. And so I separate those into an A, B, and C file just by making 3 copies and deleting all the stuff that doesn't belong in each one. But I'm a command line adept person, can do that kind of thing. You'd like to have, in these days, we'd like to have something you could do on a phone and with your thumb.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I filed it. It might be a duplicate, but at least it's there now.
I assume it was. I mean, wasn't it?
I know we must have talked about it. I don't know for sure if we officially filed it or not, but.
Oh, because it's been years. I mean, that's been something people are asking for. It's one of the reasons that Jan made his, his program, and his is not the first, kind of like that. There was another one in, who did it? One of the guys. We were still at the hacker space, so before end of 2012. It was like a local display, and that's when we realized we needed to deprecate that, because there were people that would just like, oh, look at their files in there and never upload it at all. They could do it all on their local computer.
Yeah.
And the having the easiest way to see the graphic representation of the BGeigy data on the API upload page meant that the sharing was just one click away, not oh, go get another computer and do it again.
Gotcha. Cool. And then I also wanted to bring up this one because Rob brought it up as a possibility for the 10-year anniversary. Is that one idea might be to try to get like the old Pointcast data into ingest. And I think this came out of something that we were looking at like a week or two ago, that if you pull up like a page for, this is all air data. I don't want air data. Just, I forget which Pointcasts are like around the Fukushima area, but let's see if we can find, nope, that's California. We need like I need to make a non-air version of the air data page.
Right.
Well, this is Tokyo. But anyway, we were looking at a graph that was like,
it's on, I can give you a number here in a second. I'm looking at.
Oh, I know what we can use. Duh. The thing that Emre is the thing that Emre is working on. Let's see. Ooh, this one's offline. But we were looking at a graph kind of like this one, I think.
Okay, more info. 330091.
330091.
SolarCast Nano.
Right. Where is it? We're not searching on device URN on this page yet.
Oh. What number you need then from it?
330. No, that one's not in there either.
Huh.
Where is it? What's the location?
That's the one in Okuma.
Because I can probably get it this way.
Yeah, search Okuma, you might find it.
Yeah.
That's listed on its. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Because anyway, we were looking at a graph kind of like this one, I think it was, where we noticed that you can catch like a noticeable downward trend. And I think so Rob brought up that it might be interesting to try to load in all of the old data that was for like we have sensors that have been out there that they were publishing the data into API, and now they're publishing into API and ingest. And if we can get all of the old data into ingest, we should be able to get like a nice graph.
Well, even worse, for instance, my site here at on my home, I've had one of the earliest static devices here, and now I have the latest devices. But if the earliest two devices, there are two that have been taken away, and there's no continuity with their data. But if we could, we would want to put those together and say, here's the the controller for this sensor going all the way back to 2012. You should be able to see the trend around here. But I would expect from my own readings that the trend goes down and flattened out in about 2015, because basically the stuff went back to, because it approaches normal background. And so it's got a natural slope anyway. In places like the one we were just talking about in Okuma, that's the highest area. It's right near Daiichi. It should still have a pretty noticeable slope, because it was so far above the natural level that it has a long way to go before it starts to curve out, which is curve toward normal. So it'd be a good one. It'd be a good one to look at the 5-year data on.
Yeah.
And we put it up. We mounted that one in. How did I mount that one? January 2018 only though. So, or maybe it was 27. I don't know. Maybe it was January. And how it's hard to remember the exact year when you're talking about a January or December date.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, I thought I'd throw this on the soon column because it's something to think about. The main thing on my mind with older data is that it doesn't have device URN or anything like that. You know, it's basically just like a list of numbers, and you know, like a number and a value. So what the main thing that comes to mind is like the first challenge is going to be the mapping between the two. Because yeah, we don't, you know, we might be able to map it by like location, but I don't think this device ID is like going to map up to what we call device ID today. So that's going to be the first problem, is coming up with the mapping. And then the second problem that came to mind a little bit like after, like Rob basically pushed in the channel and I was like, yeah, the mapping is going to be a tough part. And then like the next day it crossed my mind that like deduping is also going to be tricky because Rob and Ray set up that double publishing thing. So like basically when they repointed these devices to like TT-serve, and then they said TT-serve, okay, publish to both places. So that means we can't just blindly import, like once we work out the mapping, we can't blindly import everything from API to ingest because we're going to end up duplicating everything after that double publishing was set up. So we're going to have to figure out not only the mapping, but also when the double publishing started for any given.
We have a dedupe routine already running on the BGIG uploads. So when you
it's based on MD5 of like the line, which we're not. It's going to be really different.
All right.
I'm thinking more about like probably the Pointcast and stuff like that, like stuff that's been stable location wise for as long as possible. Might be the most interesting to look at. So yeah, so the thing that comes to my mind is like what we might have to do, and this is just conjecture, but like first I would try to figure out the mapping, like how we're going to go from what's in this table to what's in ingest. Then once we figure out the mapping, use that to figure out, okay, what's the first date that we started seeing data on both sides? And then when we do the import, basically cut it at that point, like import up until the point when we introduce the double publishing, import everything prior to that. And then, because it should have been turned on, like TT-serve would have enabled it at some day, right? So, and prior to that, we wouldn't have had double data. After that,
and there may be some area where it was in development, you know, where there was a couple weeks where it might have been worked in or something, but yeah, we could probably just
might be a little gappiness,
yeah, they might have enabled for one of them first to try it, and then when it worked, turned it on completely or something. I don't know. I don't remember exactly. Okay, so another issue related and not too different from that is some data that the same uploader found in Iowa. And it turns out we had a group of people there who built their own device and published it directly to the API, bypassing the moderation process, and their devices read a lot higher than anything else that we've had come to that area.
Yeah.
So it kind of stands out on the map. And they were sort of the impetus for a lot of the changes we made for like having to have keys and wanting to implement some kind of a confidence score on each data point where we could say, yeah, this came from a SafeCast device of known provenance, and this came from whatever. And so that people could, all those kind of ideas are around the fact that as we start to have more and more devices, and especially ones designed and built by other people who aren't really close to us and aren't discussing things and don't come to the API meetings, for instance, and they start to do things that we wouldn't necessarily do ourselves, we need to have some way to either segregate or curate that data. We don't want to delete it or just or block it necessarily, but we do want to have a way to make the map be the confidence in the map be good. It's not going to have somebody with an agenda deliberately putting, and this group had a pretty strong agenda. So
yeah, I mean,
they're still out there.
That goes back to this one, which is, and we don't have an answer for it yet. We certainly have some ideas, but probably like originally when we talked about it, I was like, oh, it'd be cool to do like a, blockchain kind of something or other. But like, I think when you really get down to it, we probably don't care as much about that part, so long as we can just like tag individual data points. And so that way we can basically have like a SafeCast approved tag that we can either choose to put on or not put on various things.
Well, if this was more than 20 years ago, we'd also worry about people uploading their illegal files and using our database.
Yeah. Thankfully, that hasn't happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not such a big deal with so many file sharing sites out there now. But there was a day when people were injecting their whatever files they didn't want to keep, or just trying to get more storage by loading things into cells on random bulletin boards and things.
Yeah. Thankfully, that's not a problem anymore.
Yeah, but it's not impossible that somebody wouldn't do that either, to try and gum us up, or accidentally, or some spam bot out there decides that every one of our data cells is a good place to put an advertisement for their their pills or something.
Yeah. There's very little stopping someone from like creatively drawing pictures on the radiation map right now. I think once we found it, it'd be easy enough to add an exception for and not query it. But
I'm not worried if somebody wanted to. Actually, this guy actually says, why hasn't somebody put "fuck you, Joe" in their GPS data by marching it out on some big field somewhere? And I thought that'd probably get a blog post if it was actually done with a big Geigy. As opposed to somebody who synthesizes data, and doesn't actually have, it's not real remeasurements, it's just data points that are there to put a message in the, graphically in the map. The kids at Delft University in the Netherlands, they did that. They wrote a program for their bicycle that showed them where to ride. So they put an atom symbol around their university, and it's on our map, which I think is great.
Yeah, that's actually pretty fun because it's legitimate measurements at that point, just in a creative shape.
It's legitimate measurements. It's just they just took the big Geigy to a path, and that's really good. But like I said, somebody creating a bunch of data points that have a fixed radiation value, say, or a fixed air quality measurement stuff, and just the location is a way to put something graphically on our map. That's something we need to there's all kinds of nefarious things could do. We've always had the policy, well, we'll fix that when it happens, if it happens, but we need to think about it ahead of time so that if it does happen, we have a little bit of thought process along the route, beforehand.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, it's had plenty of thought. I think what we probably could use is some implementation. As you can see, this has got
before there's a giant dick pic in Utah, or
the next step on my mind is actually just trying some things. Right, we've had plenty of talk around this topic, so it's just a question of trying out some ideas and seeing what works. And I think I remember we talked about this not that long ago, but back in the day we were on very old versions of Postgres, but now that we're on newer versions of Postgres, like it supports things like a column that is an array of arbitrary string tags, and it handles that just fine. So there should be nothing stopping us from just coming up with some sort of tagging notation, and then either we can do it positive or negative. It's sort of, I think whoever implements it can probably play with it and see what feels best code wise. But we could do tags for erroneous data, and basically filter that out, or we could do tags for approved data, or both.
Right. Or things in between, and like confidence level, or unknown, or like basically unknown provenance.
Yep. Yeah, and so I think someone's gonna have to start looking at like all the data that we have and start trying to come up with, okay, well, like probably if you could even post your example of that data into this issue, I'll send you the link. I think that would probably be helpful, because then whoever picks it up can use that as like a first sample for what the tagging method should be.
Okay.
But cool.
Well, and we've also got that we have things on the map that we have not tags on. They're on the main map. There's a link for some things, like we know somebody went through an X-ray machine, and so somebody's going to see that big spot on the map, and there's a little block next to it. Sometimes it's a little story about how something interesting about the event that created that data, or so we've contacted somebody and said, oh yeah, I did go into a museum and they did put my bag through an X-ray machine. Other times it's just like this map data's on the map, we sent them a query and they never responded.
And I think a lot of that takes
at least there's a question mark or a notification there, but that's all done manually and graphically on the map. You're talking about a new column in the whole database where everything has a.
Yeah, basically turning like all this sort of stuff into like a proper schema. Like this is sort of the way that Nick handles it right now, is he'll just put in qualifications to say like, yeah, don't grab that one, don't grab that one, don't grab that one. In my mind, I think it'd be a lot nicer if we could put that actually on the table. And then the other thing is it opens up the possibility of like people being selective about, you know, do they want to be super careful, like only get the measurements that someone has triple checked and like 3 different parties have tagged this as yes, this looks good,
Right.
or do they want to open it up and just say like, give me everything, or they're working on devices, they want to see experimental data coming from their devices.
Or if they're a journalist looking into these kinds of problems, they may filter it the other way. Let's see how.
They might want to see the erroneous data. Yeah, exactly. Whereas the way that we do it here is like just, you know, we either export it or we don't. And we, whenever it hits one of these, we don't export it, is essentially what it is. And it's, you know, I have no idea what any of these numbers are. I'm sure Nick put them in at some point for some reason. But there's no, you know, it's not like there's any comments or anything. So I just have to take it for what it is.
Well, I know some of them, and I don't remember the numbers, but if I were to pull up on one of those numbers and look at where it was.
Yeah, we could probably figure it out by location. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the range ones are known incidents. You know, there was a famous one where I banged on a B Geigy, you know, early.
Yeah. You were tapping on it.
Yeah. So and it had a loose wire, and so this so those ones are all in a block, and there's that's probably one of the very first ones up there, lowest numbers. But there should be a way to be able to relate that to why it was, you know, put on the blacklist. And
yeah, so some sort of, that's what I was thinking, some string tagging will make sense. I think it probably makes the most sense, and the database supports it now. You know, back in the day, that would have been a challenge to support, but now it should be no problem. Cool.
All right,
guys. I think everybody has to go.
I was just about to say the same thing. Yeah, let's wrap it up. I'll try to check your PRs today. Maybe we'll see. It's been a busy couple of weeks, so as soon as I can.
No hurry.
All right, thanks.
So let's talk in a minute then, Joe.
Like in 10 minutes. 10:30.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Works
good.
Great. See you then later.
Bye.